The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the bonus show. To get us back into the swing of things here, I figured today we'll just sort of catch up. We've been away for about a week and a half. I want to talk about some things going on with the show. I will tell you about my trip to Italy. I know there were many members who were following me on Instagram. I was posting pictures. I'm on there at david.pakman. You can check them out. So first of all, let's talk about my trip. Number one, it was delayed by a day in starting. My flight was completely canceled. I had this genius idea, not really genius, but in any case, sort of obvious idea. There's one nonstop flight from Boston to Rome a day, and only Alitalia, the Italian airline, makes that flight. That's the flight I'm going to take. And I told some of my Italian friends, hey, there's this great flight from Boston to Rome. I don't have to stop in Frankfurt or London or the normal sort of flight combinations that people tend to do. And my Italian friends said, Alitalia, it's sort of disorganized. I've told, some of them have told me about how they feel that Italy as a country is very, very chaotic and disorganized in terms of logistics. And they said a lot of delays, and I don't know, you almost might be better off just making the stop in Frankfurt on Lufthansa because they just run so much better and more efficiently. And I said, nah, it's going to be fine. I've been checking the flight every day it leaves. It's great. And the flight was just canceled altogether. No explanation whatsoever. I inquired about it. I was told, well, the flight to Rome was canceled because the plane coming in from Rome was canceled. Well, okay, but why was that flight canceled? Weather was perfect. My hypothesis is that they are canceling flights when they are not totally full because I spoke to dozens of people on the next day's flight who were originally booked the day before. How could you rebook dozens and dozens of passengers the next day if you're operating full flights? That's my hypothesis. They would never admit to that. Airlines are not supposed to do that. But in any case, the entire vacation starts a day late. My girlfriend and I get into Italy, and we say, we're finally here. We're a day late. We will get on the train. It's a 30-minute ride in from the airport to downtown Rome, and then the vacation will begin. About 2/3 of the way through the train ride, train starts slowing down, and it keeps slowing down, and it stops. And I say, oh, sometimes trains stop. They've got to let someone by. But then the power goes out on the train, and the train is now stopped with absolutely no power or air conditioning, and it was quite warm. And we sit there for 5 minutes and 10 minutes and 15 minutes, and eventually the conductor comes through and tells us in very endearingly translated Italian to English that this train has no life left. And we have to wait for another train to come and push us to the next station, at which point we would then change to another train that doesn't need to be pushed. So a 30-minute trip became about an hour and 45 minutes. So a lot of chaos like that. And, I know that there's a lot of sort of stereotypes about northern and southern Italy. And I don't want to feed into... They're sort of racially tinged, it is really what I'm getting at. And there's these stereotypes that exist where the northern Italians are the more civilized, and that's where the country operates better. And southern Italy is just chaos and blah, blah, blah. Lo and behold, northern Italy is far more light-skinned than southern Italy. And it has a very racially tinged thing. I'm going to go out and say, Rome is the middle. Rome is not northern or southern Italy. And it was absolute and utter chaos. But maybe the best learning experience I had is we rented a car in Rome and drove south to Naples and Pompeii, and then to what's known as the Amalfi Coast, as well as the city of Sorrento. Sorrento is actually technically part of Naples, really, but it's very close to the Amalfi Coast. The driving there was so utterly insane that it makes Boston driving seem absolutely calm and peaceful. I'm talking about switchbacks on high cliffs with maybe, I don't know, like a 2 to 3 foot guardrail where we had a Fiat 500 standard rental, which I love, by the way. I mean, it's so fun to drive. Even in a small, short car like the Fiat 500, it still felt like one wrong turn, and I'm flying over the edge of a cliff. Roads that in the US would clearly be wide enough to only be 1-lane roads are 2-lane roads. When a tour bus, which is drastically, or maybe what I mean is coach bus, I guess. When a coach bus that is drastically oversized to be making these switchbacks wants to come through, traffic stops for 10 to 15 minutes so that everybody can sort of back up and let the bus come around, because there is no way it is going to be, it's hard enough for it to be two-way traffic with two Fiat 500s. There is no way you're getting two cars through simultaneously with a bus being one of the two. So it was absolute and total chaos and stress with that driving. I was thrilled when I got back to Rome, turned into keys to the rental car, fortunately not having been destroyed, and was able to just walk around. But I do feel like it built character. I think back to the Calvin and Hobbes cartoons I used to read, where Calvin's dad would always have Calvin do stuff that seemed annoying, camping, for example, or shoveling the walk or whatever. And he would say, this really builds character. As horrible as the driving was, I definitely built character. And now what I thought was sometimes somewhat stressful driving in Boston or New York City, in my sedan rather than my tiny little Fiat 500, is absolutely nothing. So that was super, super interesting. The other thing I want to mention is I really hate when this happens, and it happens on almost every single trip I've ever made outside of the US. I feel shame to be identified. You know, I was born in Argentina, but grew up in the US. For all intents and purposes, I'm accurately perceived as an American tourist when I travel to other countries other than Argentina, in which case I'm from Argentina. There are always American tourists acting in ways that are absolutely disgusting and despicable, where I say, could you make yourself stand out any more as that annoying American tourist? And I'll give you one example. And there was a cafe close to where I stayed in Rome, in the Piazza Barberini, a little cafe called Pepe's, okay, P-E-P-Y, great little spot. Totally standard in every way as far as the Italian coffee shop goes. Like in all of Italy, if you order a coffee, you get an espresso. You can order a cappuccino. You can order a latte. You can order an Americano, which is basically their version of American drip coffee. They just take espresso and add water to it until it's the right lack of strength for the coffee. 2 tables over, there was an American woman, and she's sitting there. And the waiter shows up, and professional waiter, right? I mean, this is Europe. This is not like the US where all waiter and waitressing jobs are held by college kids. These are professional waiters in Italy, as is often the case. Shows up and has a drink, which is in a glass cup. It's transparent because it's glass. And you can tell that it has no foam in it, right? It is not a cappuccino. It's way too big to be a macchiato or whatever. It's a latte. It is espresso, and then hot milk has been added to it. And the woman looks at it, and she has a face like somebody put a plate of dog feces on her table in front of her. And she just looks repulsed, and she looks at the waiter, and she says, "Yesterday I had a big one." The guy says, "Oh, what you mean? So the size, you mean you just want it like a bigger?" You know, it was, not every place in the world has 64-ounce and 32-ounce drip coffees, right? I mean, most places in the world drink normal size coffee. It's not this a bucket of coffee that is brought to you. So the guy says, "Oh, okay, well, I'll get you a bigger one." And again, we're talking about a size issue here. This was not the wrong item. It was the wrong sized item, apparently. And he says, "But in the meantime, you can drink that one," right? I mean, he's giving her an extra coffee on the house. Very nice thing to do. In the US, many times, if you complain about something, they take it away rather than saying what you should say, because you're probably just going to throw that out, which is, "Keep it. It's on us. We'll get you what you asked for." And the guy leaves, and she doesn't touch this coffee. In fact, she sort of pushes it away like it's a bee. It's a bee's nest, a beehive where bees might come out of it and attack her. She can't have it anywhere close to her and pushes it away and doesn't touch it. And then the guy comes back and he brings the exact same thing, just bigger, right? It's another latte, but it's bigger, and puts it on the table and sees that she's not touched the one that he gave her for free. So he takes that one. He says, "There you go. Sorry about the trouble." Sorry, right? I mean, this woman is out of her mind, clearly. And again, the woman looks at it, and it was because they don't even have big enough cups for the size coffee this woman wanted. It's in sort of like an oversized, like a coffee or tea mug with a handle, but it's very, very big. In fact, it's kind of like my beer stein that I have here, which I just use for water, except not see-through, right? It's not glass, it's porcelain. And apparently that was not the right type of drinking container, receptacle for this coffee. And I I left and I walked back by 30 minutes later, going back to the place where I was staying, and it was still sitting on the table and the woman still had not touched it. Why? Why do you have to go around acting in this way? That is what is giving American tourists a bad name. And there are a million of these examples, right? It was mostly restaurant oriented, but it was also in places where, I don't know, for example, when you go to Vatican City, it's advisable to get your tickets in advance because the line to get tickets is very, very long. And then when you have a regular ticket, you have to do another line to actually get in. I went ahead and I think for maybe €2 extra per person, I got my girlfriend and I skip the line tickets with a specific time for when you're allowed in. Not a big deal. We did it a couple weeks before the trip. Show up and it was just riddled with exclusively American tourists making huge scenes to security, to ticket agents, to whoever will listen to them about how they're not going to stand in line this long. They paid good money to come to Italy and blah, 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 blah. And I'm thinking, the rules apply to everybody here the same way. Do you see how the other tourists here are not acting in this way that you're acting? Are you feeling like they are different in some way? Or what is really at the root of this type of behavior? Many incidents I could tell you about. Overall, absolutely loved my time in Rome and in these other places. Naples, people warned me about Naples. Naples is, I want to speak carefully here. Naples was grittier than I anticipated. There were moments in Naples where I did not feel completely safe. Many people told me, in Naples to park, you either go to a parking garage, a proper parking garage like the ones you see in cities underground type of thing, or there's going to be some guy on the street who you're going to need to pay to keep a watch on your car. And I said, how could that be possible? What? Pay a guy on the street? What do you even mean? Case in point, every block, every little area where you could stuff a couple of cars, there's a guy where when you slow down and it looks like maybe you want to park, he'll come over. And only men I saw doing this. And he'll sort of point you to where you can park. And he won't say you need to pay, but you'd better pay. I didn't see a single person not pay these guys. I don't know what happens if you don't pay. I really have no idea. Fortunately, the garage parking was cheap enough. I think we found a garage for €3 an hour, and we were only there a couple hours. Wasn't a huge deal. I don't know what happens if you don't pay, but everybody was paying, and these did not look like guys I would have messed with. I can assure you that. No doubt about it. Really interesting experience seeing Naples. And Naples, there's this northern, southern Italy thing that I've talked about. I don't know if it's a rivalry or a mutual skepticism. I don't want to over or understate it. Naples sort of its own thing completely and completely unique. And I went to a pizza place there, very, very well known. I forget the name of it. Michele is the name. The Italian version of Michael is the guy's name. Pizzeria du Michele. I don't remember exactly. Fantastic. Really, really great experience. And other than the fainting incident, if you haven't heard the regular show yet, maybe listen to that. I explained that I fainted on the flight back from Italy. Really, really great trip. Okay, let's talk about some of the things going on with the show very quickly, and we're going to delve more into this. Some people emailed me towards the end of the shows before our vacation saying, hey, we haven't seen Jason around lately. I will cut to the chase. Jason is no longer working for the David Pakman Show. The long and short of it is it basically became clear Jason overlapped with producer Lewis for about 3 weeks in a sort of a training phase and then took over once producer Lewis left. And we had a conversation sort of after his first week and a half or so. And we really came to the mutual conclusion that this type of production work is not exactly what Jason is interested in. Jason has always been more of a big picture guy, and this is a job that is a lot of logistics, a lot of organization and details, and that it was determined was not the best thing for Jason. So Jason has moved on, but the great news is we have a great team here, and over this week you are going to be meeting some of the people that are part of this team. I think you're really, really going to be very, very happy with the direction of the show, with the involvement of these folks. Of course, most of you already know Rachel, and she is going to be upping her role on the show. Tomorrow, I will also be introducing you to Pat, who has been behind the scenes doing a lot of the production work here for a little bit of time. The David Pakman Show is continuing. I was going to wait until the end of September to do this, but I will sort of preview that in August, we had our best month ever in terms of YouTube views, podcast downloads, new members. I mean, every metric was the best ever in August. And even though it's only the 26th now, those metrics have already been exceeded in September. And that is absolutely fantastic and thrilling and so great. And we'll talk more about that and sort of the future of the show beyond the election. There are many, many things planned. And of course, I'm so grateful to all members that are with us here. That is it for today. We'll get back to the normal bonus show routine tomorrow. I already have some stories I want to talk about. Wanted to get everybody up to speed, talk a little bit about my trip, talk a little bit about Jason's departure. And, a friend of mine who runs very, very successful businesses often says to me whenever there are changes going on with the show, chaos is good, because in chaos, you find new things and you find opportunities. And certainly things have been a little bit chaotic here over the last couple of months, but the biggest sort of metric that tells me we're still going in the right direction is that the show is doing absolutely better than ever. And that's something that I am going to continue working on above and beyond the November election, which at this point is little more than a month away.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.